Today's video is all about how utopian philosophy and technology promotes collaboration and creativity. Hi, I am Eliziam and welcome to my channel. I've got Andrew with me today and we're going to be talking to you about how creativity and collaboration are at the very core of what we've developed. Hi, Andrew, how are you?
I'm not so bad, thank you, Eliziam. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I kind of feel like this video is important at a time like this because we're living in a world of division and separation and anxiety and terror and awful stuff. And actually, I'm feeling like we need to keep the vibe high and promote some of the work that we've been doing.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with you. The world's definitely going through a very painful time at the moment, and I wish there were a way that we could perhaps get the utopian message out to more people and in a quicker fashion, because there is definitely hope. There is definitely the opportunity for us to still turn back from where we're heading.
I just hope that whatever process we're going through is fast and as painless as possible, because we need to get to the other side where the good stuff is.
I wouldn't disagree.
Okay, so let's talk about, first of all, how this idea of co-collaboration and co-creativity is at the core of our philosophy. Now, maybe I can ask you to explain a little bit the connection with embraining. Could you do that?
Well, in terms of the neural side of utopian and the way that we're trying to have it form collaboration and co-creativity, we have TSOP, our algorithm, total state of presence. And total state of presence can't be hacked. The only way that you can score points with total state of presence, and we had this discussion in a video a few weeks ago, and it stuck in my mind, it actually can only score you points by being collaborative, by being compassionate, by being creative and co-creative. And you were saying about how you feel quite competitive when you're in there and you're determined to score more points, and you're looking at how you can score those points, and those points make prizes, because those points turn into salt and pepper or online currency. But the reality is, yes, you might have been getting competitive, and you might have been looking at how you can actually hack the TSOP to score more points and get more salt and pepper. But what you weren't really aware of is what you were actually doing was, oh, if I do this, I get some more, and if I do this, I get some more. But that, if I do this each time, was actually an act of compassion. It was actually an act of collaboration. It was actually an act of creativity. And what it actually showed is you were being habitually led down an avenue of wanting to be more compassionate, creative, and collaborative, because it scored you something. It allowed you to get something that you wanted. So imagine over time reprogramming the way that we think to know that actually the reward is feeling good about ourselves. The reward is enjoying life. The reward is no more wars. The reward is that a line in the sand is exactly that. You know, the world wasn't invented with borders. God didn't invent the world and say, okay, we're going to have a border here and we're going to call it France. That wasn't the case. And, you know, when you draw a line in the sand, when the wind blows, the line disappears. We, in the digital age, we communicate with each other all of the time. It doesn't matter what country we're in. I am not in the same country as you right now. It doesn't stop the fact that we're able to communicate, forge a really strong friendship, go into business together, and build an entire philosophy together. We've never physically met. The fact is that in this day and age, relationships are formed, businesses are run. Well, the world that we know is different. Borders give us a sense of patriotism, and that's not a bad thing. It's not. I'm not saying that people should throw away everything that's dear to them that belongs within their traditions because they come from a country. But I'm saying it matters less that you are French, German, Italian, Spanish, South American, whatever. It matters far more that you're a human being, that you're part of the human race. It matters more that we are kind to one another, that we're compassionate to one another. Because if you move away from this need to add importance to what a border is, then what you actually do is you make it so you're no longer going to fight over borders, because it doesn't matter anymore.
I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. Sorry for jumping in there.
No, I know I was talking for way too much.
Fine, like this is gold. It's so much important stuff. So I would completely agree. It would be a far better world if we could all get on with each other and stop fighting over stuff. Goes without saying, right? And yes, we haven't actually met, and yet I feel like I know you so well. Like, even though there's this computer screen here, you know, it's like we are in the same country. And I think that you are right. I have been trying to hack the algorithm, and that has been completely causing a different form of behavior. And that's really, we're not trying to hide this. We have created some technology that rewards you for behaving in a certain kind of way because it's good. You know, it's not like we have created some evil algorithms that are tracking your every move and we're going to sell your very personal data. That's not what this is about. These algorithms are meant to reward, and they're meant to encourage collaboration, community, and creativity. And that's what they're doing. You're absolutely right. We've got the flagship platform working, and it proves that what we have built works. Now, I'm interested in the work of Grant Suzulu, because I know that he is a gentleman that you hold very dear to your heart, and sadly he's no longer with us. And I know that his work really was, as well as Star Trek, because that is the truth, right? This has come from two sources.
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek played a part in the original concept, and I've never made a secret of that. I was on a trip 3 or 4 years ago, and it dawned on me that everything that's happened in things like Star Trek, we end up having, so sliding doors, flip phones, etc., etc. Science fiction very often tends to be a provider for what we end up having as science fact. I think the key things about Star Trek is that it's about a utopian world. It's actually followed on from a war that nearly destroyed humanity, oddly enough. And the world has come together, and then there is no money. They don't have money anymore. Basically, everybody does what they're good at for the good of humankind. Scientists do their science, people make clothes, whatever. But they do it because they enjoy doing it. It's what they enjoy doing, it's what they're good at. And I started to think, well, is that actually possible? And as you know, I decided it wasn't possible, but in the end, it took me a long time to do it, but I did write a white paper about it. And it was only really you coming along and reading the white paper and saying, you've been sitting on this for years, why aren't you doing it? That really triggered it into actually becoming something. And, you know, I've also always said that I think that utopian is something that will take decades, if not centuries. We are realistically planting an acorn that will become a beautiful, strong oak tree for maybe our grandchildren's grandchildren. It really is going to take a long time because we're programmed to believe in a certain way. Now, I know there will be people watching this video thinking, what a load of mumbo jumbo. This is science fiction, this is a load of rubbish. And they'll be thinking that because that's the way they've been programmed to think. That's the way humankind has been programmed to think. We're programmed to think that centralized capitalism is the only way. And I'm not getting into that debate, is it the only way or isn't it? Because that's an entirely different video, but that's what we're programmed to believe, or certainly in the West anyway. In terms of Grant Suzulu, he's a gentleman I unfortunately, very sadly, never had the opportunity to meet. I know him predominantly through the words and training of a wonderful lady called Dr. Suzanne Henwood, who I am very fortunate and lucky to know. I'm very, very fortunate to call a friend. And I know him through being fortunate enough to have been able to hear some of his recordings and watch some of the videos, and hearing his last vision for embraining, where he talked a lot. In embraining initially, it's what do you need to do today to make yourself the best version of yourself? Grant's intention was to widen that. Grant's intention was for it to become, what can you do today to create and be a part of the best creative, most collaborative community? How can you make that community the best version of itself? And that's how we sort of started to get into this whole idea of physical psychology, and the idea of the sum of the parts can be greater than the sum. So, you know, I always make you laugh, but I always go back to your deliberate lie about being a choir mistress, because of course it's a beautiful example. If you've got 300 people singing hymns around the world, but they're singing from different hymn sheets, different songs with different tones, it sounds awful and you don't really get a joined up picture. But if you take those people and you stick them all in one church, and you have a choir mistress and she's got them all singing on the same hymn sheet, suddenly they're really loud and everybody's listening and everybody wants to hear and be a part of that. And that is one of the fundamental foundations of Utopian. Get everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. Get everybody working together. Get everybody collaborating. You know, and you mentioned embraining. One of the experiments that we talk about when I was training in embraining was a prayer experiment, and they actually took large groups and they prayed around the Middle East to see what effect it would have. And it was proven that when they were praying together in that moment, the guns stopped. So, you know, there is power in us working together. And there are things that we don't know about ourselves and about our capacity as human beings. Again, this comes down to perception and what we're taught in schools and programming. I was taught at school that I have one brain and it's in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Scientifically speaking, that is not actually correct. We have neurons all over our bodies. We have neurons in our heart, we have neurons in our gut, we have neurons in our ANS system, and these are all talking to one another in different ways, and there are ways for us to actually get congruence between these different parts of our body so that we are more complete in the way that we are thinking and acting in the world. That's not science fiction, that's not mumbo jumbo, even though it sounds like it is, because it goes against what we're taught, but it's actually factual.
I would like to thank you actually for introducing me to the concept of embraining. I'd heard of it, I didn't know what it was that much. And I think what I'd like to do is share those videos that you mentioned of Grant's, particularly the one where he's having a conversation with Suzanne. I think it's in 2 parts. I'll link that in the pinned comments, because if somebody wants to have a look at where this all started, maybe not necessarily that episode of Star Trek, but I'll link that down below so that we could share that work even further. I think that would be a really nice thing to do. Now, let's start talking about the technology, because that's the philosophy. We talk about this a lot because it's really important to us. Where did the technology go from there? Now, obviously I know, but I'm asking for the benefit of our incredible viewers. So maybe we could talk about where the technology went.
Okay, well, I mean, I think the most important thing to say about the technology is it can be anything. No, I mean, the philosophy of Utopian could actually be deployed across an entire country. It could be deployed on an island. It could be deployed in any way. It doesn't actually need specifically to have technology involved, but of course we evolved it into a digital solution or a digital platform just to see whether the philosophy actually worked, and then we were able to test it and say, hey, it does work, but let's just tweak this and tweak that. That's the kind of process we're in. I would say the key parts of the technology are probably the algorithm and the data that surrounds that algorithm, because that algorithm is what encourages people to be creative, to be collaborative. And we have and let's use Scribble as an example. So we have the library, and you can submit things to the library, and then those things are automatically promoted in the world in a whole manner of different ways, through link building for the search engine optimization, through the members being able to go and view them and share them, and maybe even buy and sell them. We have a little bit of competition, a little bit of gamification within the whole concept of TSOP, where we have the members index and people can move up and down the index according to how collaborative they're being, how engaged they're being. That's the word. It's a measurement, a true measurement of engagement. We have various other different elements within the technology, such as blogs and the caves. And the caves are where people can actually post their work, get support, get encouragement. That's important. It's important to be in a community. We want people to be encouraged. And the kind of comments we get back are that it feels like a safe place to be, that it's an encouraging place to be. I know one gentleman, and I won't mention his name because I'm not sure that he would want me to, but he was talking about how it reminded him of the creative communities that they had in Paris and in times.
Oh, cafe culture. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's really the employment of the philosophy through things like TSOP and these other things I've mentioned, plus things like Salt and Pepper, which is our island of sanity, online currency. And again, one island of sanity is in terms of economy. I don't have a video, it's too much for this, but those elements are all deployable through whatever technologies you want. It can be full stack development platform, it can be WordPress, Wix, an open source template project, it could be through anything. It's how you deploy those blocks of philosophy through the technology rather than the actual technology that you're using. The only thing that is necessary really for true utopianism is that these communities need to be able to connect to one another, because it's cross-trading, co-collaboration between the communities. And so that's quite important. But in terms of what you're using, other than making sure that it connects into the hive, for want of a better phrase, and to use a Star Trek word, as long as you can connect it into the hive, it can be anything, it can be any technology.
Now, I think we should have a quick look at the things that we were talking about. So let's show the dashboard, and shall we show mine? And I'll talk about this. So this is our example of what you can see that reflects your TSOP, your algorithmic score, which represents your quality of interaction online. Now, you can see that I am very creative. I have lots of YouTube videos that are loaded into the library, and so I have scored big time for this. But actually, the downside of this is that I haven't been very present, and I can only apologize that I haven't been on Scribble enough recently. I had a very busy half term, and I'm still kind of catching up on the tail end of that. So, but it's reflected in my score, and you know, I've only got myself to blame. And so I know that to get that up, I need to increase my presence on the site. It's all there in plain sight. That's exactly what I need to do.
Yeah, but I would also point out that your present score is not dragging you down too much, because we don't, and we've talked about this before on a number of occasions, we don't actively encourage people to be on their computers day in, day out. We'd rather they were being creative, off doing something, planting potatoes, or we always like using, or growing flowers, or whatever it is that they like doing in life, and then just reporting, you know, coming back into to Utopian and being collaborative and creative from what they've been doing. You know, the fact that you've not been able to be in Scribble just means that you've been living life, and you shouldn't get penalised or marked down for that. So although the system does depreciate your TSOP a little bit within the algorithm for not being present. You have to be concurrently not present. It's not like, oh, I've not been present for a day, that's going to have a massive impact. You really only start to see those big impacts if you're not present for like weeks on end. That you start to see negative scores.
And that was important, wasn't it, when we were working out how this algorithm would work, because we didn't want to create a machine, a monster even, that ordered people to live their lives online. That's not what we're about. We're about rewarding people for positive, collaborative, creative behavior. And you're right, if that does happen to be taking place off in the real world, then you're right, people shouldn't be penalized for that. But for me, I feel like I'm missing out because there's so much cool stuff going on, and I want to get back into the caves and read my amazing, growing, living book that just grows every day. It's incredible. Of course, TSOP is linked to the wallet, and I wouldn't do anything so brazen as flash my wallet.
You do it at every single meeting we do.
Oh, go on, let's have a quick look. So I've got a very busy transaction schedule there. You can see all sorts of stuff happening. Now, a lot of those are wonderful credits for being rewarded for my TSOP score. So that's a really nice thing to see. There's also a random one from you, Andrew, a scheduled monthly payment. I'm not sure why you gave me 10 salt, but
you're benefiting from the fact that about 3 months ago, I decided to put a monthly transaction in there to test the monthly transaction and then to take it off. So you're doing okay out of that, because I think that's 3 months worth you've had now.
Will you paying me for testing? Is that what the service
is? That's what it is, yes, absolutely.
All right, okay. Well, I feel I should test the service back in return, so I'll send that.
There's no need, honestly.
Hilarious. Okay, so some of the other features that promote collaboration and creativity. We've talked about the Haiku Kukaju collaborative project. We have a queue of collaborative projects queuing up to get a look in. We won't talk about those today because that is news for another time, but it's going very well. The groups, the caves, amazing stuff happening in there. Can we talk a little bit about the collaborative tool, which is in beta testing phase, or is this top secret?
No, it's not. It's not top secret. It's in beta testing now. So if you're a member of Scribble, and if you go into the members menu, you will see that there is something in there you may have actually already noticed called collaborative tools. And if you go into collaborative tools,
yes,
it will actually allow you to build collaborative projects with your fellow members. Now, there's a massive caveat here. This is in beta. If you go and use it, and you are very welcome to, please do. Please also keep us informed of any bugs that you find. That's the whole point of beta. If you're using something that's in beta, it's so that we can iron out the problems. And also, if you have suggestions while you're using it, it's an opportunity for you to give us those suggestions. We won't go into showing you the actual tools today because A, it will take a bit of time, and B, I think there are probably still a few things that we'll end up tweaking before we'll necessarily show them in a how-to video. But I would tell you in summary, you can effectively project manage. If you look at last week's how-to, I think Eliziam, there's some use of the CRM in there, tells you how to use a CRM system.
I think it's the week before. Last week's was illustrations, how to upload your illustrations into the Haiku.
If you can put a link below to the...
It's a great plan. I'll stick a link in. Okay, cool.
There you go. Then the reason I mention that is because when you're in the collaborative tools, anybody you want to include within your project management, they have to be in your CRM. So get them in your CRM first. Eliziam will give you a link on how to do that. And then you just go into the collaborative tools, you click the button that says new project, and you just follow the wizard. The wizard literally takes you through, and it's effectively what is it, what's it going to be doing, and who's in it. It's that simple, and it could be something like you're working with another member to write a book. So one of you might be writing the poem, the poems or the words. One of you might be doing the editing, one of you might be designing the illustration, and one of you might be doing the cover design, and there might even be another person doing formatting for Amazon. So you can put all those people into those collaborative tools. You can assign when they need to be done by, the milestones, and you can upload different things to each other. So the writer could upload the manuscript, the editor could check the manuscript, and they can pass it back and forth between each other with comments. And so on all the way through. The cover designer can upload various different images of the cover to be viewed and so on. So it's a milestone-driven project management tool. It's very, very simplistic on purpose. There are lots of really, really deep, meaningful project management tools out there. So reinventing the wheel seemed pointless. What we've done is instead created a tool that can be used between members within a utopian community, and eventually between members of different communities that want to work together. So an example that Moxie Malone gives, for example, one of our esteemed members, is that you might have a publishing company and they want to publish a book based on recipes. And they might want those recipes to be kitchen tested. So they might actually collaborate with members within a cookery utopian community, and they're able to get the testing done between the two communities, co-collaboration.
That is so beautiful. And I want to personally volunteer now to be part of an eating community. Now, listen, I think that this is way too cool. And I think maybe I would like you to come back for Friday's how-to video to talk about how we can access and use the collaborative tool properly. Would you be up for doing that?
I certainly am, as long as we just keep remembering that it's only in beta.
It's in beta. Okay, all right. Now, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your input, fascinating conversation, and a really good insight into how the philosophy of embraining and co-creation and co-collaboration have fed into the creation of utopian platforms. Thank you. Now, there is just enough time for me to ask you to like, subscribe, and put that bell notification on so that you never miss an episode. And if you like this channel, don't tell me, tell your friends. I'll see you next time.